The accused. The midday sun beat down hard on the wooden roofs of Ash Hollow, a rough frontier town nestled deep in the Wyoming Territory. Dust hung in the air, kicked up by the dragging feet of a terrified young girl. Her wrists were bound with rope, and the hem of her tattered dress was stained with mud and blood. Her name was Anna Carter, and at just 17, she was being marched through town like a criminal. Behind her, a group of settlers followed with grim faces and rifles slung over their shoulders. At the front of the group, Sheriff Abel Granger barked orders and spat into the dirt. She stole from the general store. Tried to poison old Mrs. Whitcomb's stew. You ask me. It's witchcraft, he growled, not for the first time. The townsfolk, desperate and angry, had latched onto the idea like dry grass to fire. And the fear in their eyes didn't ask for proof, it demanded punishment. She ain't even got folks. Someone shouted. No one to claim her. No preacher to speak for her. Ain't that enough? Anna kept her chin up, but her legs trembled. She wanted to speak, to scream that she hadn't done anything. But every time she opened her mouth, someone shouted her down. The last time she spoke, a woman slapped her. At the edge of the town square, the gallows stood waiting. The rope swung gently in the hot wind, casting a long, crooked shadow over the parched earth. A crowd began to gather as word spread. Some brought children, telling them it was a lesson in law and order. Others came simply to see something different than the dry monotony of frontier life. Anna was pushed to the steps. She stumbled, but caught herself. Her heart pounded like a drum. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Sheriff Granger barked again. Any last words, girl? Anna's lips trembled, but she said nothing. What was the point? They had already decided she was guilty. No trial. Number, evidence. Just fear and superstition. Granger reached for the rope. Then the wind shifted. A rider appeared at the edge of town, alone. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man on a paint horse. His long black hair tied back with leather, a hawk feather tucked behind one ear. His face was weathered, quiet, unreadable. He wore a buckskin coat and carried no rifle, only a bow slung across his back and a tomahawk at his side. The murmuring crowd turned to watch. He didn't speak as he rode forward. He didn't need to. Everyone knew what he was. A Cherokee, and worse, a warrior. Granger stepped down from the gallows, squinting. We don't want no trouble, Injun, he said, hand drifting to the pistol on his hip. The warrior said nothing, just dismounted slowly, his moccasins silent on the dirt. I said this, here's our business, Granger snapped. Town law. Still, the warrior didn't speak. He looked at Anna, then at the noose, then back at the sheriff. .com. Steady. What do you want? The sheriff growled. Finally, the man spoke. His voice was low but clear. Let her go. Gasps echoed through the crowd. No one had ever defied Ash Hollow's lawmen, not like this. Granger sneered. She's guilty. Stole from us. Tried to poison. She's no witch, the warrior interrupted. And she didn't steal. And how would you know? The Cherokee stepped closer, eyes steady. Because I tracked her before you found her. She was running from something. But it wasn't your store. Anna's eyes widened. She didn't know this man, but in his presence, she felt something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. Granger was silent for a moment. Then, with a growl, he motioned to his men. You've got no right to interfere. This is settler land. Our laws. The warrior's voice didn't rise. Then your laws are wrong. He placed his hand on the tomahawk, and tension sliced through the air like a knife. The crowd grew restless. The girl, forgotten for a moment, looked down at the rope around her neck, and for the first time in days, she let herself believe maybe she wouldn't die today. The noose and the stranger. The square was frozen in tension. All eyes were on the Cherokee warrior and the noose that still swayed behind Anna. Sheriff Granger's hand hovered over his pistol, and his men stood rigid, unsure whether to step forward or step back. The warrior's voice broke the silence once more, calm but full of power. If you kill her, you'll answer for it. Granger's nostrils flared. You threatening a lawman, boy? The warrior didn't blink. I'm warning you. There's still time to make this right. Anna's breath caught in her throat. She didn't understand what was happening, but she knew something had shifted. The stranger's presence had unsettled the town in a way she hadn't seen before. Not even Granger looked sure of himself now. A young settler, barely 20, stepped forward. Sheriff, maybe we ought to listen. We don't know if she's guilty. She's not. Anna finally shouted, her voice cracking. I didn't poison anyone. I was just trying to survive. I never stole anything. But Granger wasn't ready to give up control. You expect me to believe the word of some orphan girl and a redskin who just rode into town? The warrior stepped forward again, this time, standing between Anna and the gallows. His dark eyes locked with Granger's. I am called Taquali, he said. I have seen war. I have seen justice, and I have seen men like you. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The name carried weight. Some settlers had heard stories about a Cherokee tracker who once saved a cavalry unit from ambush. Others spoke of a man who vanished into the wild and returned only to protect the innocent. They said he could hear lies in a man's breath and kill without making a sound. Taquali looked up at the rope, then cut it with a single swipe of his knife. The thick cord dropped to the ground like a snake losing its spine. A collective gasp echoed. Granger's face turned beet red. You just made a serious mistake, he growled, drawing his gun. But before he could even aim, Taquali had his tomahawk in hand. He didn't swing it, he just held it steady, its polished edge gleaming in the sun. I came for peace, he said. Don't force me to bring war. The crowd held its breath. Then an older woman stepped forward from the back. Wait, she said, clutching a worn shawl. I saw the girl outside my house. She wasn't stealing. She was leaving food on the stoop for the baby. More murmurs. Another man spoke. And Mrs. Whitcomb's stew. She was sick for days before that. Maybe she's just old, not poisoned. Granger faltered. The control he thought he held was slipping fast. Sheriff, someone called. Let the girl go. This don't feel right. Granger's jaw clenched. He looked at Taquali, then at Anna. Fine, he spat. Take her, but don't expect Ash Hollow to welcome you again. Taquali didn't respond. He turned to Anna and gently untied her wrists. She rubbed the raw skin, eyes wide with disbelief. You don't even know me, she whispered. I didn't have to, Taquali replied. I know injustice when I see it. He led her to his horse. The crowd partied without a word. Where are we going? She asked as he lifted her onto the saddle behind him. Away from here, he said simply. To where people remember kindness. And, with that, they rode away from the gallows, from the hate, from the noose that had nearly claimed an innocent life. The townspeople watched in silence. Some ashamed, others relieved, but none of them would ever forget the day the hangings. How one quiet stranger made them question everything they thought was right. A ride through shadows. The trail beyond Ash Hollow twisted through thick pines and rugged hills. Each hoofbeat echoed like a memory fading behind them. Anna clung to Taquali's waist, her fingers trembling. Not from cold, but from the shock of everything that had nearly happened. The hangman's noose still burned in her mind like a scar. Neither of them spoke for a long time, as dusk painted the horizon in strokes of orange and violet. Taquali slowed the horse and led it off the path, toward a hidden grove surrounded by birch trees. There, near a creek that murmured like an old friend, he dismounted. We rest here tonight, he said quietly. Anna slid off the horse, her legs weak. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to, he replied, removing a small bundle from his saddle. Just live. She watched him with cautious curiosity. He moved like the wind, graceful, quiet, deliberate. Every gesture had purpose, every silence meaning. He laid out 2 blankets near the creek and began to make a small fire using stones and dry grass. I thought I was going to die, she whispered, sitting cross-legged nearby. You came close, he admitted, not unkindly. Ash Hollow is not the only place that fears what it does not understand. She glanced at him, puzzled. Why did you help me? Taquali didn't answer at first. Instead, he fed the fire until it cracked and warmed the space between them. When I was a boy, he finally said, my village was burned by soldiers. They called it a mistake. Said they thought we were rebels. My mother tried to explain we were peaceful. They didn't listen. I watched her fall with words still on her lips. Anna swallowed hard, unsure what to say. I learned then. Taquali continued, that justice does not belong only to courts or sheriffs. Sometimes, it belongs to those who will not stay silent. The flames danced in his eyes, and Anna saw not just a warrior but a protector carved by sorrow. She took a deep breath. My name's Anna Lee. I came to Ash Hollow because I thought I could find work as a seamstress. My parents died of fever 2 winters ago. I've been on my own ever since. You're strong, he said. Stronger than they know. She looked at him. What about you? Why are you out here alone? I'm never alone, he said, pointing to the stars above. My ancestors walk with me. Anna followed his gaze. The sky was a blanket of stars, brighter than she'd ever seen in town. For the first time in months, she didn't feel afraid. Night deepened. Taquali offered her a piece of dried meat and a cup of creek water. She ate in silence, the fire warming her from the outside in. When the sheriff said I poisoned someone, she began, I couldn't even speak. It felt like my voice disappeared. That's what fear does, he said. But truth waits for the brave. A long silence fell again, but this one felt different. Softer. Safe. Where will we go? Anna asked. There's a place beyond the ridge, he said, a small community near the river. They don't judge outsiders. They trade, share, live. Simple. You'll be safe there. Will you stay? She asked, her voice more hopeful than she meant it to be. For a while, he said, looking into the flames. Long enough to see you stand on your own. Anna smiled faintly. I'd like that, Taquali nodded. Then rest. The road is long, and you'll need your strength. She lay back on the blanket and closed her eyes, the fire's warmth wrapping her like a promise. As she drifted to sleep, the wind rustled the trees and the stars held watch. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she dreamed not of gallows or judgment, but of freedom, and of a stranger who had become her lifeline. Whispers of the river town by morning. The sun filtered through the birch trees, casting long shadows over the sleeping earth. Anna stirred beneath the blanket, blinking against the soft light. For a fleeting moment, she forgot where she was until she turned and saw Taquali calmly sharpening a blade beside the creek. She sat up. Morning, he nodded. We ride soon. The river town is half a day's journey. As they packed up camp and mounted the horse, a silence lingered between them. It was not awkward. It was the kind of silence born from trust. The kind that comes after surviving something unthinkable together. By midday, the terrain began to soften. The rugged hills faded into rolling plains, and the roar of the nearby river became louder with each mile. Finally, they reached a ridge overlooking a scattering of small homes nestled beside the Snake River. There it is, Taquali said, New Hope. Anna leaned forward on the saddle. It's beautiful. Fields of corn and squash spread like a golden carpet. Children chased one another near the water's edge, and smoke curled gently from chimneys. It didn't look like much, but it looked like peace. As they rode into town, heads turned. Strangers whispered behind curtains and storefront windows. The sight of a Cherokee warrior riding into town with a pale-skinned girl behind him was enough to stir old habits of suspicion. But no one shouted. No one pointed. They stopped near a wooden post office, where a middle-aged woman with braided gray hair and worn hands stepped onto the porch. She had eyes like iron and a mouth that didn't smile icily, but when she saw Taquali, her face softened. Taquali, she said warmly, crossing her arms. Back from your wandering, I see. He dismounted and offered a respectful nod. Hello, Mabel. I bring someone who needs help. Mabel's eyes drifted to Anna, scanning her face, her dirt-streaked dress, and the cautious hope in her eyes. She didn't ask questions, only nodded. She can stay in my back room. Work if she wants to. Eat when she's ready. Anna slid off the horse slowly. Thank you. I don't know what to say. Say you won't steal my jam, Mabel said dryly, and walked back inside. That night, Anna helped Mabel prepare dinner for the community, a simple stew and cornbread. No one asked where she'd come from. No one accused. Instead, they shared stories, passed bread, and laughed like it was the most natural thing in the world. Taquali sat on the porch, watching it all from a distance. A boy offered him a carved bird as a gift. He accepted it quietly, nodding once. Later, Anna joined him. They didn't judge me, she said. Not once. Taquali leaned back, folding his arms. This town was built by people who were cast out from somewhere else. They know what it means to be falsely accused. She looked at him. Why don't you stay here longer? These people respect you. He glanced toward the darkened fields. Because there are others like you. Out there. Ones who don't get rescued. As long as there's injustice, I ride. A lump formed in Anna's throat. I don't know how to repay you. He looked at her then, not as a savior, but as an equal. Live a good life. Help the next one who stumbles. That's all the thanks I'll ever need. Anna nodded, a silent promise forming in her heart. The next morning, Taquali saddled his horse once more. A small group gathered to say goodbye. Mabel handed him a leather pouch of dried meat. Anna, eyes misty, held his hand briefly. You saved me, she whispered. Not just from the noose, but from giving up. Taquali nodded, then turned to ride off into the morning sun. And as he disappeared beyond the bend, the town of New Hope settled back into quiet peace. Anna stood taller now. She was no longer a girl running from death, she was a woman who had found a second chance. And because of one mysterious stranger, she believed in kindness again. The ghost of Ash Hollow. The morning mist clung to the ground like a reluctant memory. Anna stood outside the bakery in New Hope, the smell of rising bread filling the air. Weeks had passed since Taquali rode off, but his presence lingered in her thoughts, in the whispers of townsfolk, and in the way her heart still beat a little faster whenever she saw a lone rider crest the hill. She had started a new life here, helping Mabel, planting herbs behind the shop, reading stories to children. In the evenings, her hair had grown out, her smile had returned. She even laughed, no genuine laughter, not the hollow kind born of nerves. But something shifted when a bloodied rider limped into town one night. The rider Samuel Grant was an old trapper, grizzled and weathered. He slumped off his horse and collapsed at the blacksmith's feet, whispering a single name before fainting. Taquali. Anna, alerted by the noise, rushed to the scene. When she heard Taquali's name, her stomach turned to ice. They carried Samuel into the doctor's hut, and Anna stayed close until he woke. When he finally opened his eyes, pain flickering in them, he grabbed her wrist. "He's in trouble, miss. Real trouble. Ash Hollow." Anna had heard of Ash Hollow, a stretch of barren land east of the river, cursed by locals, avoided by all. Stories said the place was haunted, full of echoes from a massacre during the war. No one went there willingly. He rode in to stop a lynching, Samuel continued. Some rancher's boy framed for stealing. The town's sheriff is in the rancher's pocket. Taquali stepped in. Anna's breath caught. And they locked him up, said they'd hang him at sunrise tomorrow. A cold dread swept through her. She stood abruptly. "I'm going after him." Mabel, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward. "You'll never make it alone. That place is crawling with hired guns. It's suicide." Anna didn't flinch. "He saved me when no one else would. I have to try." By sunrise, she was gone, riding hard on Samuel's old mule with nothing but a rifle, a bag of jerky, and the determination of someone who had nothing left to lose. The ride to Ash Hollow was brutal. The winds howled like voices from the dead. Trees stood twisted and bare, like tortured ghosts frozen in time. The sun disappeared behind thick gray clouds, casting the world in cold steel. When Anna arrived, the town was exactly as the stories said: silent, broken, dangerous. She hid the mule near an abandoned shack and crept toward the old jailhouse. Through a cracked window, she saw him, Taquali, chained to a post. Bruised but unbroken. A guard paced lazily outside, chewing tobacco. Two more sat inside, laughing over a bottle. Anna's hands trembled on the rifle. She wasn't a fighter, but she wasn't the same scared girl who had once been dragged toward a noose, either. She waited until nightfall, when the guards grew drowsy and careless. Then she moved, silent as shadow, heart pounding like war drums. With quick, practiced motion, she threw a rock toward the stables. One guard stood and went to investigate. A moment later, a second followed. That left one inside. Anna didn't hesitate. She kicked the door open, rifle raised. "Don't move." The guard froze. "Toss your weapon. Now." He obeyed, hands raised. "Keys, throw them." Moments later, she unlocked Taquali's chains. He looked up, eyes wide with disbelief. "Anna." She smiled through her fear. "You didn't think I'd let you hang, did you?" He stood slowly, favoring one side. "You're either brave or insane." "Both," she whispered. Gunshots rang out. Suddenly, the guards outside had returned. Anna grabbed Taquali's arm and pulled him into the alley behind the jailhouse. They ran. Bullets bit into the dirt around them, but somehow they made it to the mule. Taquali pulled himself up behind Anna, blood dripping from a reopened wound. "Hold on," she hissed, and kicked the mule into a gallop. Ash Hollow disappeared behind them, swallowed by the rising dawn. Blood trails and betrayal. The mule galloped through the misty plains, its hooves thundering across the rugged terrain, as the pale morning sun chased away the shadows of Ash Hollow. Anna clung tightly to Taquali, feeling the warmth of his blood soaking through her sleeve. He was losing strength, but not his spirit. "We need to stop," she said urgently. "You're bleeding too much." "There's a cave," Taquali rasped. "Half a mile west. Hidden behind the ridge. Locals don't know it." They turned, guided by memory and desperation, and reached the rocky slope just as the mule's legs began to falter. Anna helped Taquali dismount and half dragged him into the cave, where the cool darkness swallowed them whole. Inside, Anna lit a match and found a small, dry chamber. She tore pieces from her skirt to staunch the bleeding and used a flask of river whiskey to clean his wound. He winced but didn't cry out. "You're lucky they didn't hit anything vital," she said. "I've been lucky more times than I deserve," he whispered. Anna sat beside him, breathless, her hands trembling. "You saved me once, Takwali. I couldn't just let them hang you." He turned to her, eyes soft in the flickering flame. "You didn't just save me. You proved you're stronger than the world ever gave you credit for." They rested there as the hours passed, but Takwali knew their time was limited. Word would spread. The men from Ash Hollow would be hunting them, and worse still, there were whispers of a bounty one that reached as far as Missouri and even into the territories. That night, as Takwali drifted in and out of sleep, Anna stepped outside the cave to gather firewood. The plains were quiet but not empty. 3 figures moved silently in the tall grass. She froze when she saw the glint of a rifle barrel. Then voices. "She's here. The Cherokee's inside. Alive." Anna ducked just in time as a shot rang out, splintering a tree behind her. She scrambled back into the cave, slamming a rock into the entrance as a makeshift barricade. "They found us," she cried to Takwali, forced himself to sit up, despite the pain. "How many?" 3. "Maybe more coming." He took her rifle, checked the chamber, then handed it back. "You take the first shot. Wait until they're close." Anna nodded, her fear now replaced with determination. The attackers approached cautiously, thinking their prey was weak, but as one man crept toward the cave, Anna fired. He dropped like a sack of stones. Gunfire erupted from the outside, bullets tearing through the barricade. Takwali, using a revolver he had taken from the jail guard, fired through a crack in the wall, striking another assailant. Then came the voice they didn't expect. Well, didn't think we'd run into you again, Tak." Takwali stiffened. Anna looked at him. "You know him." "Luke Sutter," Takwali growled. "Used to ride with me during the war. Thought he died at Devil's Ridge." Luke's voice oozed amusement. "I died that day, all right. Just not the way you think. You left me behind, brother. Now I've got a price on your head and it's personal." Anna whispered, "What do we do?" Takwali's jaw tightened. "I end this." He crawled toward the edge of the cave, leaning out just enough to see Luke's shadow moving along the rocks. "I didn't leave you," he called out. "You ran. You chose gold over honor." Luke laughed. "Honor don't feed a man, but revenge does." Takwali closed his eyes for 1 second, then opened them with clarity. He stood, limping toward the open, rifle raised. "Takwali, no." Anna shouted. Luke stepped into view, and 2 shots rang out. Smoke cleared. Luke collapsed, clutching his chest, a stunned look frozen on his face. Takwali staggered, then dropped to his knees. Anna rushed forward, catching him before he fell completely. "I thought you said you were lucky," she said, trying to laugh through her tears. He smiled faintly. "Guess I've got one more left in me." They buried Luke under a tree near the cave. By dawn, they were moving again, no longer just fugitives, but survivors bound by something stronger than fear. The legend rides at dawn painted the sky in fiery oranges and cool purples as Anna and Takwali stood atop a bluff, overlooking the town of Dry Creek. The wind whispered over the prairie grass, tugging at Anna's shawl and Takwali's worn coat. The town lay quiet, bellowing, aware that justice was about to knock on its doors. "We don't have to go back," Anna said quietly, her eyes searching Takwali's. "We could keep running. Start over somewhere new." Takwali's eyes remained on the horizon. "We've been running long enough. And there are others in that town, kids. Women who deserve better than men like Barlow and Mayor Jessup." Anna nodded. "Then let's end this." They rode into town just as the sun crested the rooftops. The streets, once silent, slowly filled with murmurs as townsfolk noticed the bloodied warrior and the girl they thought had vanished into the hills. Barlow stepped out from the sheriff's office, flanked by 2 deputies. "Well, I'll be damned," he sneered. "The girl and the savage, right back where they started. What is it this time, surrender or suicide?" Takwali dismounted with a grunt, still weak from his wound, but standing tall. "We're here for justice. For Clara. For the families you've extorted. For the blood on your hands." "Big words for a dying man," Barlow replied, reaching for his holster. But before he could draw, a dozen townsfolk emerged, some with rifles, others with nothing but kitchen knives and firm stares. One of them was Old Man Higgins, the blacksmith. Another was Millie, who had lost her husband to Jessup's fake land taxes. "We're done being afraid," Higgins called out. "You hang one girl. You threaten a town. But now we've got the truth. Barlow's face paled. You fools gonna side with them. With him. Millie stepped forward, voice unwavering. We're siding with what's right. And you're going to pay for what you've done. Jessup emerged from the mayor's office, red-faced and sputtering. This is treason. Mob justice. You'll all hang every last one of you. Anna strode toward him, holding up a leather-bound journal. This book says otherwise. Clara kept records. Of everything? Names, bribes, threats. It's all in here. Jessup went still. Where did you her room? Anna said softly. The one you locked after her death. With their crimes exposed and the town turning against them, Jessup tried to flee, but he didn't make it past the stables before being tackled by the same boys he'd once forced to shovel coal for pennies. Barlow reached for his gun one last time. Tack WAL, I was faster. The crack of the shot echoed through the town square. Barlow fell backward, the wind knocked out of him as his revolver skittered across the dust. It was over. That evening, the townsfolk gathered near the well for the first peaceful town meeting in years. A vote was held. Sheriff Barlow and Mayor Jessup were to be tried before a circuit judge. The townspeople would elect new leadership men and women who knew right from wrong. Anna sat beside Taquali on the steps of the general store. Both exhausted, but alive. I don't know what's next, she said. Maybe, Taquali said. We help rebuild. You could teach the kids. I could help with the horses. Quiet work. She smiled. Quiet, sounds good. A small girl approached, no older than 7. She offered Taquali a red flower. You're a hero, she whispered. Tack WAL. I took the flower gently. I'm just a man trying to do the right thing. The girl ran off. Anna watched her go, tears in her eyes. A week later, word spread that a Cherokee warrior had stood against injustice in a frontier town, that he had faced gunmen, corruption, and hatred and won. Travelers spoke of him in hushed tones, like the return of a ghost from the plains. And Anna, she stayed. Taught children under the oak tree. Helped bury the past and build a future. They were no longer fugitives. No longer alone. Just 2 souls who had fought for something greater than survival. Hope. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the legend of the warrior and the girl grew louder with each sunrise.